North Carolina is looking really solid so far this season with 3 players averaging 15 or more points. But what's going to happen when all the pieces come together and this thing really takes off?
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Thursday, December 7th, 2023. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. Usually joining me today would be Coach Bill Robinson, the head coach of the Milligan University Buffaloes. Unfortunately, Coach is sick today. He's down and so not able to join us. So our best wishes and thoughts go out to Coach as he's getting back to health. We want to thank you everydayers for joining us on Locked On Tar Heels for your first listen or watch to get your team every day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. It's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. Welcome to new everydayers, but also want to welcome any of you who are new to the show or repeat customers. We're so glad you're here too. If you want to be a bigger part of this community, we're talking Tar Heels all the time in a Discord channel. Come join the Locked On Tar Heels Discord. The link is in the show notes. Folks, coming up on the show today, we're going to take a look at the bench usage, or should I say the lack thereof in recent times. And I've got a brand new segment for you today. It's ridiculous and hilarious. It's called A Moment with Maggie. Get your laughing pants on. It's going to be insane. My wife is joining the show for the first time ever, and I'm not kidding you. It's awesome. It's going to be so fun. So that'll be at the end of the show. But where I want to go first is having this conversation. North Carolina looks good. They look really solid. They're competing at a level that I legitimately believe is like top 15 in the nation good. But you and I aren't okay with just that. We want more, right? Like we're greedy North Carolina fans. We're not going to be okay with just beating a lot of teams and being okay with losing to UConn. Now, we talked about it. Maybe that sounds like a contradiction to what I said yesterday. I'm not, I wasn't advocating that I was okay losing to UConn yesterday. I was just saying, I like what I saw, and Carolina is not elite, but they can get there. That's where I'm at. And so I want to see us win games like that. Here's how that needs to happen. The Tar Heels need a fourth scorer to consistently join this trio that all is averaging 15 or more points a game right now. First off, that's obviously RJ Davis is one of those three. This dude is locked in at a level I've never seen him before. Right now, averaging 21 points a game. If the season ended today, that would be 18th all time in a single season in Carolina history. By the way, that 3-point percentage, it was like, all right, RJ's doing okay, low 30s. It's slowly creeping up to where you want it to be. Right now, he's shooting 36.4% from three. That's just 0.3 of a percentage point lower than his career high, which was his sophomore year, 36.7%. So RJ's right in line with where he wants to be. I'd like to see him take it up even higher than that, get up to that 38, 39, maybe even 40% range. That'd be crazy. Oh, and by the way, would you like to hear something about the company RJ is keeping right now? Because it is literally next level good. OPTA Stats on Twitter said this. I noticed it on Wednesday. RJ Davis of UNC basketball has scored at least 25 points and gone 5 for 5 or better from the free throw line in 4 straight games. You knew that. We had already talked about it on the show yesterday in recapping the UConn game. RJ's 4-game streak right now is ridiculous. So again, to reiterate that, 25 or more points in 4 straight games and 5 for 5 or better from the free throw line in 4 straight games. And they say this is tied for the longest streak by a D1 player this century, along with Steph Curry in 2008 from Davidson. That's the company RJ Davis is keeping right now. So when I say he's locked in, yeah, that's wild. Now, joining RJ and this would be phenomenal in its own right if RJ wasn't doing what he's doing, is Armando Bacot and Harrison Ingram. They're both averaging over 15 points a game, 15.9 right now for Armando, 15.1 for Harrison. So that three-headed monster, RJ, Mondo, Harrison, is averaging exactly 52 of Carolina's 85.1 points. They're doing it all. Translation, what do I want to see? A fourth scorer rise up and be a consistent and excellent scoring option alongside those three guys, even if it meant that RJ dipped a little bit, Mondo and Harrison dipped a little bit, not because they're not scoring or not being efficient, but because somebody else was rising up. Or heck, I'd love them to stay where they're at and somebody rise up, just get the team scoring average up. That's great too. For me, that fourth guy needs to be Cormac Ryan. Right now, he's averaging 10 per game. That's great and okay. But I would love to see him get that up to 13 or 14 a game. And quite frankly, all that he has to do that is start making an average of one more three a game. That is like dumb, easy math, right? He's averaging 10. If he started making one more three a game, he'd be at 13. Right now, though, Cormac is only shooting 25.5% from three. Now, it's not like he's shooting poorly everywhere. At the free throw line, he's shooting 92% on the young season. Now, it's just 25 total attempts, but he's made 23 of them. So it's not like the shot is missing. And also, from a scoring standpoint, I like his aggressiveness when he goes to the rim. I would just like to see him do more of that. He's got the size, he's got the moxie as a 25-year-old dude to know to be that wily veteran that you see at the playground, whatever. Here's my take on why this is happening with Cormac Ryan right now. After sustaining that ankle injury late against Villanova, like right at the end, he's trying to, when he heard it, whatever. What that's causing is that he's not getting the lift he needs on his jumper right now. Free throw line, it doesn't matter. It's the same repeatable Cormac Ryan thing, and you don't have to get that lift off the floor to make those shots, whereas you do from the three-point line. Let me give you some data, some stats to back it up. Pre-injury, Cormac was shooting 28 from three. It's not a great percentage, 28.6, but it was much higher than post-injury. In the 3 games since returning, he is 4 of 19 from three, just 21.1%. So he's dropped 7.5 percentage points in the span since coming back. So again, wasn't setting the world on fire already, but he's setting the world on fire even less since then. Think of what he could have added to the UConn game. Heels lose by 11. Cormac Ryan, let's say instead of going 0 of 6 from three, he goes 2 of 6 from three. That's 6 more points, and this is only a 5-point game. Let's say he goes 3 of 6 from three, which is well within reason for what this dude can do. Then Carolina only loses this game by 2. And I know that's a little bit of loosey-goosey math, but you hear what I'm saying. And then you add to that, if Carolina had just done their normal thing from the free throw line, Carolina could have won this game. And I think in large part it's due to the fact that Cormac Ryan was 0 of 6 from three. But I understand it, again, because I believe it's his ankle bothering him from being able to get full lift. What's the good news? Carolina doesn't play again for like 10 days till next Saturday against Kentucky. So the rest and recovery he should be able to get during this break before Kentucky is going to be huge. And I said it on the show yesterday. I want to say it again because I think it's critically important to help us process it. I know that you're frustrated with Cormac and where he's at right now with shooting. I know I am. But here's what you need to know. There is no one on this earth more frustrated with Cormac Ryan shooting right now than Cormac Ryan. Like, it's not like he goes home and he's like, yeah, whatever, that's too bad. No, this dude is livid with how he is shooting. Now, with the Tar Heels, the experience is there. We're talking about like all the things clicking and pieces coming together. Per KenPom, the Tar Heels are 4th in the nation in terms of D1 basketball experience. So and that's even with, Elliot getting all the minutes he's getting. This is a extremely veteran team that has to learn how to play together. These pieces are going to fit. They do fit, but they're going to click, and then it's going to be off to the races. And I really expect that to start happening as Carolina just gets more and more. I've been using the term data points under their belt. With each game that passes, you're going to see more connectivity. And speaking of Elliot, he's only going to continue to grow through all of this as too. He's going to grow as a scorer. He showed a willingness to get to the rim more against UConn, including the first points of the game, which was a shot up over the top of Donovan Clingan. Not to mention that Elliot now in his last 6 games, 29 assists to just 4 turnovers. In that stretch, that's a 7.25 assist to turnover ratio, 7.25 to 1. For the season, he's at 3.4 to 1. I mean, it's insane what he's doing. And that's only going to grow. And so what happens when you take these 3 guys, RJ, Mondo, and Harrison, that are already doing that, and add a more consistent Cormac Ryan, add a more consistent Elliot Cadeau, it just makes what other teams have to do to prepare for the Tar Heels that much more difficult, because it can come from any angle. Think about UConn on Tuesday night. Donovan Clingan, we did a great job, held him to just 8 points. What happened with the rest of the starters? Well, they were all in double digits. That's what we're looking at and looking for with the Tar Heels on a consistent basis. It's insanely difficult to guard a team that can beat you from all 5 positions, because at that point, it's pick your poison and be my guest. Good luck with it, because then RJ is going to burn you if you lock in on Mondo and Harrison and vice versa and all that. And then in addition to all that, Carolina needs spot help from the bench as well. But my thing is, when this team clicks, this is a team that if they do it early enough, there's no reason they cannot win the ACC regular season championship. Like, that is in front of this team. We're going to watch out for it. Now, speaking of that bench, the bench usage started out strong this year for Carolina, and we were encouraged by it in year 3 of Coach Davis. But it has started to trail off the last several games. So was it all just a mirage earlier and we're back to the same old, or what's the story? We'll talk about that in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode of Locked On Tar Heels is brought to you by FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So maybe you've been thinking about joining FanDuel. Well, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. Their app is super easy to use. They've got all these various betting options that you can get in on: spreads, player props, over-unders. There's like Final Four odds, there's national champion odds, there's the ACC regular champion odds. I just said the Tar Heels can win it. Right now, Duke is at plus 190, Tar Heels are at plus 340, Miami and Virginia at plus 470, and Clemson at plus 1000. I legitimately think any of those 5 teams could win it. So if you want to get in on some of that action, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get it going this NFL or college basketball season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, the bench usage for North Carolina right now is in a downward spiral. We could say it's a downward trend, but it has been falling off precipitously in recent games. As you know, and as we've talked about, Carolina was doing a much better job earlier this season of utilizing its bench, but the rotation has been tightened significantly recently. And it's not like there's cupcakes coming up. The next 2 games are Kentucky, who you know and are aware how good and talented that team is, and Oklahoma. And oh boy, do not overlook Oklahoma. Porter Moser is a phenomenal coach. They're playing great basketball right now, still undefeated. So, seriously, that is going to be an insanely tough game. But the problem is, as we start to think about that bench depth usage, after that, after Kentucky and Oklahoma, it's only Charleston Southern, and then you're into ACC play, which, oh, by the way, kicks off with 3 straight road games. So where are you going to find minutes for these guys in the bye games that you typically would do? That's the thing. In this day and age, with a 20-game conference slate, those availabilities just aren't there. What does it mean? You've got to try these guys out. You've got to give them opportunities, even in these more difficult non-conference games. Now, with the Tar Heels, you can't go back and look at the history on Ken Palm of the bench usage, but Carolina was 4 or 5 games into the season using its bench 32 to 33% of the minutes. And actually, they were ranked like mid 100s nationally in terms of bench usage. However, following the UConn game, so all the data in after that, Carolina, their bench usage has now dropped under 30%. They're at 29.52 on the season and are 255th nationally. By the way, there's, for context, 362 Division I teams. Carolina sitting 255th in bench usage. Let me prove that to you with some data. I've actually, I track a lot of stats, a lot of data. This is part of what I love with all this. And like even working on making up my own stats stuff it's just fun for me. I love it. I love the math of it. So I finally went in and I was like, if we're going to be tracking this, I want to track it. So I went ahead and made myself a spreadsheet for tracking Carolina's bench usage. So here's how I want to prove this downward trend to you with the data of it. Here's how you process this. Carolina's played 9 games. Each game that you played, there are a total of 200 minutes available for your team. Pretty simple math. 5 guys on the court at a time, times 20 minutes and a half. 5 times 20 is 100 minutes. And you played 2 halves, so 100 plus 100 is 200. There are 200 total minutes available per team in a game. So to find the bench usage percentage, you just simply add up all the bench minutes and divide that total by 200, and you got your percentage. Make sense? Yeah, pretty easy, right? So let me give you the bench usage percentage game by game in order from game 1 to game 9. 32%, that was Radford. 40%, Lehigh. 40%, UC Riverside. 38%, Northern Iowa. 27%, that's Villanova. 28%, slight bump back up, Arkansas. 25%, that's Tennessee. 17%, that's Florida State. 19%, a little slight bump back up against UConn. Now, so it's not a straight line down, but if you put all these on a scatter plot, obviously the trend line is in a downward spiral. Like we're losing altitude as though one of the engines has given out on the airplane on this thing. And so this is what we're doing. I'm really curious because I was bought in. Fool me 8 times at this point. I was bought in that Carolina was going to use 10 guys consistently at a good level of minutes. It doesn't seem to be the case right now. Now, again, we're only 9 games in. You have a big layoff. I know you got finals to contend with, so there's not going to be a ton of practices, but we'll see what Carolina's doing when they get back, when they're playing Kentucky and when they're playing Oklahoma and Charleston Southern, and then into the final 19 games of the regular season. Here's the thing for me. You don't have to use a deep bench. I'm really coming around to the idea that in college basketball, kind of the sweet spot is an 8-man rotation. Anything shorter and you're just wasting away dudes. Anything more than that, and you don't really utilize your best players the most minutes at ultimate efficiency, at maximum efficiency. And so I think this has been a change because, I'm kind of a disciple of the Roy Williams era where he's using a lot, 9, 10, 11 guys at high level minutes. And it's only been recently that I've started to remember, oh yeah, we often complained and wonder like, let's get more minutes for the dudes, and by the dudes, I don't mean all of them. I mean the main dudes. And so there's this happy medium and 8 for me is that number. But that said, why didn't Zayden High play at all against UConn? And I'm not saying he's got to play 5 to 10 minutes a game. I would just love to see, like he's done in the majority of games. Zayden has had 2 to 3 minutes in the first half and then not really been in the second half. Things like that. That's what I'm looking forward to see out of Zayden. And again, it doesn't need to be 8, 9, 10 minutes, but get him on the floor, which also he didn't play at all against Arkansas. Even if it's just a couple minutes, it's helpful. And I got to be honest, like could his energy not bring something to the floor? Could it not be helpful in some way? Maybe there's a concern that he'll mess up. It's the youth, whatever it is. But I'd love to try it. I'd love to just see it against this high level competition. And I know in this age of 20 conference games, as I said, the bye games are fewer and further between. But that means if that's going to be the case, you got to try it in some of these high leverage moments. And by the way, for Carolina, just as we're thinking about bench depth and usage of the bench, if the goal is to play faster and with more tempo this year, that's not going to be a thing with fewer guys played. If we're going to continue trapping, as we did obviously a ton against Florida State and then employed that again quite a bit against UConn, which maybe that's just going to be Carolina's down and Coach Davis is trying something. But when that's the case, you want more guys. It's not going to happen with fewer guys. If the goal is to sap the legs of the other team and like win in a big way the final 10 minutes of the game because you've got the sea legs and your opponent doesn't, that's not going to happen with fewer guys either. That's what I'm looking at for the Tar Heels is, I just shared all this data with you. Where's it going to go from here? We don't know that yet, but I'm really curious to keep an eye on it, and I'm sure you are too. All right. I told you this off the beginning, but it is the debut of our brand new segment here on Locked On Tar Heels, A Moment with Maggie, where my dear sweet wife will share her thoughts with us, in this case, on the North Carolina UConn matchup. I promise you, hijinks will ensue. It's ridiculous and insane and a blast. So just buckle up for that, and we'll get to it in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode of Locked On Tar Heels is brought to you by Prize Picks. Hey, testing my skills on Prize Picks this season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. So if you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. It's a simple way to play. You can make your picks and submit your entry on Prize Picks in under a minute. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections, and then you watch their winnings roll in. How about this one? A former Tar Heel in action on Thursday night. Tonight, Mitchell Trubisky's passing yards for the Steelers against the Patriots is set at 181.5. I think I got to take the under on that. I know that sounds weird. It's not the under, the less. But that's what I'd be going with. So go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. I'd like to introduce you to a brand new segment on our show. This is A Moment with Maggie. Sitting to my right, your left as you're watching, is my dear wife, Maggie Schade. Maggie, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
It's good to finally be asked.
Honestly, it's been a long time coming, and I apologies to all of you from hoarding her and not letting her on yet. Maggie, on Tuesday evening, you sat beside me as we watched the North Carolina Tar Heels take on the University of Connecticut Huskies inside Madison Square Garden. You have thoughts on this game, and I'd love for you to share them with all the people in the first ever Moment with Maggie.
Yeah, I had a lot of thoughts after the game, during the game, honestly. The first was I did not know, when I saw the UConn coach, I did not realize that was the UConn coach because I felt like he was should be doing my taxes instead of coaching college basketball. So that was a bit surprising to me that was him.
Honestly, it really was.
Also, I felt like his glasses were so far down his nose that I just wanted to push them back up for him.
Yes.
And maybe he needs the strap.
Like little rec specs or whatever.
Yeah.
I just wanted to push them up.
Yeah, I felt like that would have been helpful for him. Honestly, I know it was not a great game for you, not your favorite to watch.
Honestly.
But I feel like, we've been married for
almost 15 years.
A number of years. Yeah. Is it really almost 15?
It will be August. Yikes.
Wow. That's
We're
a long
old.
Time. But in that time, I have obviously watched a lot of college basketball, and I'll be honest, I have not heard when I've heard about UConn basketball, it was usually not the men. It was the women. Heard a lot about UConn women's basketball. So as rough as the game was that night, I was a little proud that and I don't know, maybe they have been good and I haven't heard, but usually I just think of the women's team. So I don't know if maybe the women like taught him how to play basketball or something.
Maybe.
So
Gino stepped into practice.
yeah, like good for them, honestly. That was impressive.
Did you know that the UConn men's team has won 5 of the last 25 national championships?
Obviously.
What else you got?
5 of the last 25. I was shocked. I feel like Mondo has gotten a lot more tattoos since he started. Also, when I said that to you during the game, I said Mondo has a lot more tats, and you thought I said a lot more cats.
I did think you said cats.
Which maybe is also true. I don't know his starting or ending number of cats, but I don't know if that's right, but I feel like his tats have really increased, and I like them.
I'm a fan. What about Donovan Clingan, UConn center, whom Mondo was guarding? Any thoughts on him?
Tall boy?
Tall boy.
Yeah, he was very tall.
Very tall, 7'2".
I was kind of shocked by that. I know there's a lot of tall people in basketball, but he was very tall. And also I just felt really bad for him because I felt like his toes were not great.
His toes were not great.
Could see in his face that things like walking, running, shooting were hurting his toes a lot, and I felt really bad for him.
I think anguish is the word I would probably use to describe
probably
what he was experiencing.
Probably.
Any other thoughts on the game in our inaugural moment with Maggie?
I felt like it was a good game. No, I mean, not a great game, but there was basketball played and there were points scored. And good for UConn. I'm learning so much. Good job, UConn, to get a lot of national championships. That's great for you. My knowledge of college basketball is clearly not as extensive as yours, but I do know things about UNC. So you should be proud of that.
You should all be very proud of that. This has been your first ever moment with Maggie. That's it for today's episode of Locked On Tar Heels. Big thanks to Maggie for joining me. That was so much fun. And man, I love it. Just a blast and so hilarious. I love that woman a lot. You can come join us and talk Tar Heels all the time on the Locked On Tar Heels Discord. The link is in the show notes to that. You can email us, lockedontarheels@gmail.com. Would love to answer any questions you have there. Want to let you know that coming up next Monday, it's going to be Mailbag Monday. There's no Tar Heels game this weekend. There's nothing until next Saturday. And so we'd love to take an opportunity to answer some questions that may be cropping up for you. Also, don't forget to subscribe on video and audio. Smash the like button if you're watching, and we'd love to hear your thoughts and comments on today's show. Want to remind you that it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll be right back with you tomorrow, but until then, peace.